What to you is a thriving artist?
I think the moment you say I'm an artist, I think that's powerful. I think that that's not only that you say I am an artist, but that you share your art with the world. That is more than that, and especially in our generation where you share it literally to the whole world through social media. Um, that is thriving because there's so many people who like little Wildy, little Andy, like I want to be an artist, or and then we got wrapped up in the reality of world and paying bills, and you just hit it and you don't share it, and that's the biggest failure, is not sharing it. I think it took me a long time to even say that, like even to say Wildy, an artist, even though my parents would literally, my nickname growing up was Wildy the designer. Like that's
Yeah,
everyone called me, but that became like an identity thing. But the sweet spot, or like the part where I just felt not unworthy of, but like, no, I'm not that, was calling myself an artist. Like that's that's a new thing for me. I'm like, oh, I am I remember somebody saying like, wow, it's like you're a real artist now. And I am. I actually am a real artist now. So I think calling yourself an artist, believing it and sharing it with the world. I know there's people who are artists, but they say I just have art for myself. Like it's just my form of self-care and therapy. But I want to challenge those people to be generous and share that, because then that could be somebody else's therapy and somebody else's way of self-care.
for
Um,
sure.
so it does take a little bit of bravery to share um, your gifts with the world. And but I mean, how much more beautiful would it be if everyone is sharing their art?
Fork in the road between thriving and starving artists is where I'm at. I really like your work. I can't eat lights. I need new heights. Just want to make a living doing the work I love. Throw the notion of a starving artist out of the window. Take the elevator down to the ground floor and jump on it some more.
Hello, and today at the Fork in the Road, we have Wildy Martinez from Wildflower Fields. She is a traditional artist, fashion designer. You've embraced all this technology. You've embraced NFTs. You've Web3, AI art, and you've mixed that in with your themes of wildflowers and obviously fashion and vitiligo. And I'm just wondering, did you have trouble blending those? How was that process of mixing all those together?
I felt that the way um, Web3, which was basically what we're doing in X, Twitter, like the way that community, how it was built, I felt that this, for the first time, I saw it like as an umbrella that I can house all that I am. So it had the community aspect where I can talk about myself. I love sharing my story. I love encouraging other, and it allowed me to kind of be vulnerable in a very artistic way, because then my what I would share with my words or in spaces would be embedded in my art. So if I wanted to talk about vitiligo, it's an art piece about vitiligo. And then, because I'm a designer and I professionally worked in fashion for 20 years, it's just kind of like part of my style, whether it is I'm adding like a dress to the, pieces, or there's a little bit of like editorial or beauty inspiration. Like it just happens. But I think I did struggle when I wasn't in Web3, when I was just like on social media, like Instagram. I remember not knowing what to share. So I was looking at my Instagram before I went full time with art, and I would share things like motivational messages. And I thought I was gonna be the next Megan Morgan, I think is her name. She's like this very minimalistic artist. She's a Black artist, and she became really well known for these beautiful illustrations with a message like "keep going." Or then she became famous for these videos, and you will snap, you do a screenshot, and you'll get the word of the year with art. So she's like, I think her company is the Storyteller, and she does journals. So I thought that was going to be like my thing, because I really loved. I worked for the youth for many years in New York and Harlem for 10 years, and I just always want to encourage the next generation. So I really thought that was going to be like the thing on Instagram for me. And then I would do some like fashion art, and I just felt conflicted as like, who am I? But I think Web3 was the first time I felt like, hi, I can actually add everything that I am in one thing. And that's how Wildflower Fields kind of was born, because I feel like that's the brand, but in it, people know me now because of vitiligo, or the fashion, or that I talk about being a minority and being a woman. And yeah, it's probably one of my what I feel like is like a success to me, that I can be all these things. And that like if people, I love when people see a flower and they'll send it to me like a DM, like thought of or they see someone with vitiligo and they'll say thought of you, or they see someone with like curly hair, oh, thought of you. So it's like, which is crazy, because I think obviously with vitiligo, and then being a minority and being Afro Latina, I just felt so much shame, and like I wouldn't necessarily even bring that up as something I would want to share with people. But it's so wild to me that these things that I was just like, oh, I don't know if it's marketable, or what are the things that people remember about me. And so it's been really cool. Also, one more thing, I think what makes it really cool is that Web3 allows you to build in the open, right? Or what they call building in public. So I think people have seen me kind of bloom, no pun intended, and grow. And like, I shared one piece of vitiligo, and then it kind of just, that's the beauty of it, where you can build publicly, and you don't have to work in, hiding in a studio, and then when it's ready, show it. You kind of have like a focus group built in your Web3 community, where I can say like, what do you guys think about this? And kind of get a feel for whether it's an NFT or a project. I have that, I have that special bond with everyone in there, that it's been such a cool thing that has happened throughout these 3 years.
Yeah, that's one thing I find really inspiring about watching what you've been doing is like someone, you're posting a lot, you're in the fashion industry, but and you've got your own style, and somehow you've managed to stay completely authentic in everything that you do. And I find that, in the AI world as well, like oftentimes lines can be a bit blurred between personal styles and things like that, but your style always shines through, I think. So it's really worked with your style, and also with your Web3 community. Where is this Web3 community? Is it in Discords, or is it through X, or how do you connect with everybody?
Yeah, so right now, the past 2 years, I would say, I've been able to have relationship with a lot of people outside of, because of in real life events. So attending,
Right.
so this year I've been in Art Basel. I did a artist residency, and it was mostly Web3 artists in the residency, and we lived together for like a week, and we talked on the phone. Like, so I think this year, for sure, I've taken the community where, we're in Twitter, but I just had a, 1 hour call, like FaceTime with one of my Web3 friends. So it has definitely merged into like friendship. I am on X, so we chat there, but this year I've been on Telegram.
Okay, yeah.
So we do chat on Telegram when it's a group focused thing. Discord, I go in there, but I'm not a big Discord person, and I don't. It's like the same community that's in Telegram. We just have like a Discord as well. But most of my
Right.
most of how I keep in touch is X and actually Instagram, because what happened was, X and Twitter, was my Web3
Yeah.
Twitter was my Web3 world, and that's where we all said hi to each other. And then we have the DMs and the group chats, which is crazy. And then because of AI fashion and how mainstream it went, Instagram became another place. So I had like my AI fashion community and then my Web3 community. And I've been slowly trying to merge, friends that do AI art and fashion, like, hey, why didn't you mint this? So I've been kind of this person. I might be one of the few people that is in AI fashion that is doing NFTs out of them. Right? Obviously, we know Clear Silver did a whole fashion NFT drop last year that did, I don't know, like $1 million in a day.
Right.
Crazy. But I don't think I've seen fashion designers that are using AI and combining with art and selling them and using blockchain. I haven't been
Yeah.
seeing that. I've been seeing people in the industry use the NFC chips and things like that, but I haven't really seen like the case of actually minting your fashion art creations yet. Not a lot of people
Yeah.
doing that.
Just a quick intermission to say that the Fork in the Road podcast has a Patreon as well, where you get a whole bunch of special things. You get an extended hour-long advert-free things, like you get to ask the podcast guests questions. You get a blog where I deep dive things which, might help make you successful and me successful, because I'm learning along the way too. You can also chat with me one-on-one and talk about your art business and make it work together. Back to the interview.
This year, for sure, AI has kind of been the lead of my business, like working with different brands. So right now I have a project with a client, and that kind of leads to something else. Hopefully next month I'll get like another client to work on images and campaigns. But it is interesting. I think art, like creating art and minting art for me now has become like the fun part. Not that AI, everything is fun, but creating the
Yeah.
in the Web3 community is definitely like such a joyful thing for me to do. Because it's just me. I'm not dealing with a client. It's just like whatever I want to do. So that's kind of like my um like where I get to play a lot. And then it's cool because then if I sell an NFT, like recently I won a competition and I got like income from it. And I'm like, this is so cool. Like we sold out from a collection, and this is like my passion project, and I'm able to generate income from it. And because, it is volatile and it goes up and down, I don't have that much pressure where I feel like the stress of like I have to sell art to pay my bills, which I was there when I first started. I was generating, we were selling way more. Obviously, we were in bull market, and I definitely sold. I sold an NFT like almost every day back in
Yeah.
2022, 2023. So I think having my other, AI fashion, AI traditional fashion design jobs helps remove the pressure of like having to sell my
Mhm.
right now, because that is very difficult.
So would you say, if you were to break down your revenue streams, because you would have a lot, I imagine you do public speaking and you do consulting, and your artwork. If you were to break that down, what would be your major revenue stream? Your
My traditional fashion.
traditional fashion, yeah,
hmm And then,
yeah,
however, I do have to say that this year, AI fashion consulting and it has been kind of neck and neck with traditional fashion.
hmm
because of like prices and like obviously the tariff stuff that's happening, um, the traditional fashion world is kind of like being careful with their spending. And I think
Yeah.
AI and digital fashion has increased because obviously you're cutting costs down. You
Mm.
need to hire. You don't need to, like, if you want to design a new jacket, for example, you can create it with AI, make it 3D, show it to your buyer, and you're not really have to produce that jacket, make it in real life, um, and then have that extra cost. You're kind of like cutting costs because then the buyer can see exactly how the jacket's going to look like when it's produced, and they can
Yeah.
order like that. So I see AI and digital fashion be so much more sustainable, obviously, than physical fashion, and the industry using it to cut costs down. Like right now, I'm creating something, and I'm like, wow, they don't need to hire a model. They don't need to hire a photographer. They don't need to hire a film photographer. They don't need to hire props, location, makeup artist.
Mm.
Creating it with AI, everything, you know.
Mm.
And you reminding my clients of that, like you're saying
Yeah.
a lot. So yeah.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. So it is definitely being used because I was wondering that as well, how because I see a lot of your high-end stuff, which is quite surreal. You might have giant flowers or giant birds or things underwater. How that, models underwater, how that translates to making practical, real-world fashion that people wear every day. Um,
I actually did a test this year with my traditional fashion job. I usually do research. I, check on like what other designers are doing, like trends. And I actually use my client AI generated images. And I'm like, this is not a real person. This jacket doesn't exist. I did it with AI. And they were just like, what? And I'm like, yeah, like now we don't need to go buy the sample of an existing jacket to send to the manufacturer. We can get an idea of how the zipper is. Now I can just generate it and we don't need to buy, samples or like get inspired by another designers. I could just get what your vision is and generate it for you. And then they were just like mind blown. So
yeah.
the fashion industry is very slow to adopt to technology. You would think that it would be, you know, really quick to use AI or these. I mean, it is moving fast, but it is slower than what most people think. Like most of my clients are not AI savvy and are still shocked when I say this is not a real model. I just did it right now with AI. They're like, oh my gosh. Um so it is merging, even that is merging, traditional and digital fashion is merging for sure, quicker than what I thought.
Just back on the artwork side of things, with pricing your work, like so you've got physical work and you've got NFT work. A lot of people. I mean, I don't know a lot of. I don't know a lot of. You know what I mean. With pricing NFTs, like, do people have a issue with paying the same amount of money or more or less than an actual physical piece of art because it's digital? You can't actually hold it. Or what have you found? If you were speaking to audience who are looking to get into putting their NFTs, turning their art into NFTs, would they price it the same amount as their work, or how would you do that?
It really,
And then there's editions and things like that. Yeah.
I think it really depends on, and then this is a conversation that is so, we have all the time, especially in the because we depend so much on the market. And then some artists say like, but should we? Should I cut my prices because Ethereum is up or down, or Should I, so we have these conversations all the time. I really think that artists should price their work however they feel like they should. Um, so in my case, it does help that I am in um, different chains. So for my Tezos, I am definitely lower there. But for example, I did a collection with I think I had 10 pieces, one of ones, and I did 5 of them in Ethereum and 5 of them in Tezos. But because I was selling them for equivalent of $150 each on Ethereum, I made sure that it was $150 on Tezos. I'm not going to put it for $5 because the platform is known for more, a lower price. So I make sure that I want my collectors not to feel gypped. I could have just gone to Tezo and picked it up for $1, So I'm very conscious of that. For example, and I'm using Tezos as an example. I did a collection. I was like, oh, I'm going to be traveling. I want extra funds so I can use for traveling. So I do that as well. So I'm going to put this collection in Tezos with the intention of the funds I make will help me pay for Ubers and stuff. I think I was going to New York. But when I'm doing things like that, I'm very intentional and I do heavy marketing and I make sure that my collectors have that they feel special. And that's when I do you'll get a physical print. And I think I had them 10 edition each, maybe I don't know. I think they were 10 Tezos each or something like that. So it wasn't super expensive, but they had a lot of additions. And then I kind of gamified it a little bit because I started to burn. And then the collector was like, oh my gosh, there's not going to be enough. Or I would burn and have just one collector ended up being a one of one, holder. So then they're putting in the secondary market because now there's a talk around it and then, object featured it. So it's kind of it kind of is up to you. I wanted to do it like that. I wanted to do it fun. And I knew I wanted to generate income quickly because I needed it.
Yeah.
And, but I'm not just minting it. I need money. No, I want to also add value. So obviously the conversation around it was very valuable because it was about my culture. And then I created a chat with all the collectors. So, it's a little bit more relational and you're working really hard. So I don't mint just to clarify, I didn't mint just because I wanted to, it was curated beautifully and I invested a lot of time into it as well. And then, for example, this week, my ordinals, I did it as a group collection, and I think we generated together $8,000, and then we divided it into 20 artists. But the reason why we were able to do that is because we had a curator, we had a lot of people in the project, so they're promoting it. So my advice is that it's really not about the pricing as much. It's about the marketing and getting it out there and having people kind of support your project. Because if you have a piece of work and you decide to list it for $1,000, but you don't do any marketing around it, you don't show up in the NFT community, you don't talk in spaces for your collector, it's just, you could put it for $1 and it's still not going to sell because it's not really about the price. I think my collectors collect because from what they say is because you're going to be somebody big one day. and you're going to charge a lot more than this. So I want to collect it now, which I'm so thankful for. But it really is about for the NFT, you really need to connect with people and community. You can't just come in as an artist from outside and mint your work and not say hi and not GM and not and, and not do spaces, where emerging artists or I'm new to NFTs or, I belong to I belong to a DAO, the One Love Art DAO. I belong to the Women of Web3 community. I belong to NFT Charlotte community. So these communities are so pivotal for me to make a sale, because I say, hey, I'm dropping this, and they'll share it amongst their communities. So yeah, and there's actually I have a collection right now that's been sitting since 2020. My first AI fashion art collection I ever done hasn't sold, and it's been sitting now for 2 years. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm like, it's point 0.12 ETH. I think when I first minted it, they were like $500 each, or a little bit more, and it has not moved. So it's,
Yeah.
am I going to drop the price, or am I gonna say I believe that this is, I think now that's equivalent to $200. I'm not going to drop it because I want to.
Yeah.
It's like I believe that's the correct price.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've minted it, so it can sit there now for
Yeah,
however long it needs to.
right.
Yeah.
And then you see like really successful artists. They mint their work for a really high price, and it sells. So like,
Yeah.
it's money.
Yeah, if you were starting out again, if you were at the beginning of your creative career as a kid, what advice would you give little Wildy if she was 10 or something like that, and she wanted to get into fashion design and art? What advice would you give her?
Well, I always knew I wanted to be a fashion designer since I was 6 years old, and I already at 13 I was in fashion industries high school, so I was already immersed in fashion.
Yeah,
I
cool.
think what I would have said was to be a little bit more like rebel a little bit more against the system of working for other people. And I wish I would have been um, more independent faster. And I think, I loved working for I worked in corporate fashion for almost 20 years. And I think what happens when you work so long in doing what you love to do, but for like an industry like that, or for like corporate, you do um you do forget, like, I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a fashion designer by myself. You just start getting used to, I got used to just, going in, getting my paycheck. I was making a lot of money in New York City, and then I became a mom, and I kind of forgot that little girl who wanted to be a designer and wanted to draw clothes and wanted to work for Oscar de la Renta. Like, I just forgot about it. And as many of us in 2020, when the world shut down and I got laid off, and what did I do? I started to paint again. And I'm like, oh wow, like this is who I am. And I think we all need a kind of like that reminder of like our passions. So that's really when it started for me, was during the pandemic, because I started to create art, and I posted on Instagram, and then I did a challenge of uh, each day for 30 days, whether it's on a napkin, whether like just that consistency. And that's how in 2021, people that knew that I knew how to draw were like, have you heard about NFTs? Have you heard about NFTs? You know how to draw. And people are,
Mm,
there's like bored, like these monkeys, and you know how to do better things than monkeys. And I'm like, what? And that's how like my researching came. So it took kind of like that pause in my life to reconnect with like the artist that was in me that I had forgotten about. So I would definitely say, cool, you're working for companies, and cool, you're getting salary, but there's more for you, and you need to believe in yourself and not think that you're going to be like second best or make this company successful because of you, rather than you can actually do this for yourself and create success for yourself and your family on your own. For sure, I would say that to her. I'm saying that to myself now.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. That has been a very interesting conversation. There's so much more I wanted to go into techie details, but maybe one day we can
Yeah.
chat again. It'd be lovely. Thank you very much for joining me. Have a good day.
Thank you so much for listening to the Fork in the Road podcast, or watching the Fork in the Road podcast. For those people watching on Patreon, we also have it as a video on Spotify and YouTube. If you like the idea of chatting with artists, talking about how you go from starving to thriving, how you become a successful artist, whatever that means to you, whatever a thriving artist means. If you like this kind of thing, you can support the podcast in many ways. Apart from becoming a Patreon, you can just share it with your friends, or you could leave a review on iTunes. I think iTunes do review. Whoever does reviews, if you look in your podcast channel, if it allows you to do a review, or if you're watching on YouTube, please comment, please like, and I won't be one of those podcasts that go, you got to give a 5-star review. If there's something about the podcast you don't like, let me know. Write it in the comments and see if I can, tweak it a little bit to make it work better for everybody. But yeah, 5-star review would be pretty awesome. But anyway, check you next time.